What is going on, guys? We're doing a little how-to video today. I'm going to show you how I have been making some of these larger bongs. In this particular case, this is about 8 pounds of clay. You can do them larger, you can do them smaller. I actually tried a bunch of different sizes myself. Spray the apron down, make sure that you're not getting silica in the air, and plop down that 8-pound lump. We're going to center that up. Sometimes you give it a smack and a whack, and that'll usually get it down on the wheel head. We center it with a method called coning. You bring the clay up, and you bring it back down. Right into this little gumdrop shape, little Rolo shape is what that is. You pierce down into it, make sure that you don't pierce through the bottom, because again, we want to make sure we have a thick enough bottom to trim up later. Don't want any holes in it. You'll pull the walls. Pulling the walls is a little bit tricky, especially if you're a newbie. Even as you can see here, I'm struggling with this. It's a real struggle to get that form. You start with a tall cylinder. Use a sponge on a stick to get the water out. You can sponge throw. You can throw with just your hands. Here you can see I'm trying to sponge throw, but to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of sponge throwing because you can't always feel how deep the actual wall is because you're feeling it through the sponge, so it's a little bit wonky on your senses. So I generally prefer to pull with just my index finger and my fingertips, but a lot of times when you have a big old piece of clay like this, it's tough to keep the pot lubricated without using a sponge. So a lot of times for these bigger builds, I will use a sponge. You pull up that neck, make sure everything is tall enough. You really don't want anybody to get splashback or anything like that. I wanted these ones to hold a good bit of water, but I also wanted them to have a nice long slender neck. Here you can see I'm just ripping off some of that slip on the outside of the bong there. This basically makes it it cleans up the form, and it makes it easier to take the pot off the wheel. Personally, I don't leave the slip on. Some people do like to leave the slip on. There's other ways you can take the pot off the wheel while you leave the slip on. But I just take it right off. You can see I don't throw on a bat either. A lot of people throw on a bat, and that's another way you can leave the slip on. A bat's basically just a piece of wood that connects to the wheel head, and by connecting that to the wheel head, you can take it right off once you're done throwing, and you don't ever have to touch your piece. I firmly believe that throwing on a bat is important for a lot of shapes, but it's not always necessary. It is not always necessary, and I'm still pretty new. Here I'm just doing the same thing. I'm making what's called a chuck. This is just basically a tall cylinder, and you basically use it to hold like an odd shaped piece. I'm going to trim that chuck up, center it on the wheel. We're going to throw some sausages, press them sausages into place. We're going to use a needle tool, cut off the excess clay, and we're going to clean up the chuck. Don't matter, this is going on the bottom of the wheel head. We're not going to use this for much. So we'll smack, 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 and a whack. Lay down those sausages, and we'll put the piece in there. I use a level to center this because you center the chuck, so you don't need to center the piece you're setting inside of it. But what you do have to do is make sure that it's level. And it's really a pain in the ass to do that with like a needle tool or like trying to guess. Get you a level. That thing was $2.50 at Lowe's. I live in Illinois. I don't know where the hell you live, but they're probably cheap. So get you a level. The other thing you should get is like a Gatorade bottle cap. This is what I'm using here. This is an Ocean Spray Cran Grape bottle cap. So what that basically does is if you center that little Ocean Spray cap on the top of the bong or on the top of the piece, whatever you're making in this particular instance, of course it's a bong, it gives you a little more surface area than a finger. As you can see when I'm centering, I usually put another finger down to kind of counterweight. With something like this, with a chuck as good as this, you don't usually need to do that really. but I still feel like it helps from throwing the pot off center. Here we're gonna make the little bung, or the down stem. We're gonna use a glass insert down stems, but this gives you a little extra length to work with. Sometimes with these bongs, you know, it's tough to figure out what hardware you're gonna use. I think I'm gonna make a video later where I only talk about the hardware that you use for these bongs post firing. Because I think it's right now it's tough to find YouTube videos where people are able to like give away their secrets, if you will, because there's tons from just research. There's tons of different ways that you can put the hardware in, and I'm referring to the down stem, the bowl, and then the O-ring or the grommet or whatever you want to call the little rubber piece that goes in there. These are things that are tough for people to figure out in the early days, and myself included. I'm sorry, I had to let that ride for a second. Anyway, that is a 3/4 inch hole punch. I personally went with a full brass tube hole punch, and the reason for that is just because you can make that little down stem, that little ceramic bung or whatever you want to call it. You can make that with like the outside of the tool, because it makes it like the perfect width. Here we're going with our new logo, I guess. I don't know if I'm gonna keep using the dog, but I think I am gonna keep using Bulls by Brody for the meantime. I'll probably come up with something cooler later, but I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of a personal touch. It's got my name on it, and I like the dog too, the cookie cutter dog. I do have to say, I get a little wild with this bong. I just felt like the neck was a little wonky right there at the top, and since there wasn't exactly a way for me to fix it, I decided I would decorate it a little more. And to do that, I rolled out a thick coil here. As you can see, these are thick boys. These are some thickies, dude. So we roll out some tiles and we score and slip. But I ended up deciding I want this thing to look like a vine, and that I want it to wrap all the way around. So here you can kind of see me like wrap it into a spiral for like a vine. And then we wrap it all the way up that little down stem. I basically decided to crimp everything like a pie crust, which I feel like gave me like a cool, like kind of like octopus tentacle or like a vine kind of design on this thing. So I found that to be kind of dope. So I do kind of like that design that I used with the pie crimp. And here I just take me a little brush and some slip, because I went a little crazy with the score and slip. You have to score and slip though, so it's always worth the cleanup. But I personally just use a little slip and then a nice little strong brush, and you can clean up all that slip or all them little marks that you put on there with your serrated rib, whatever you want to call that. And then we have it, man. I threw me a few different sizes, just trying to see what I like. The tallest is in the middle, and then of course we got the one we made today. Got a couple little pipes in the center there. And yeah, again, I'll make a video showing you guys the hardware needed later on, but I just really want to thank you guys for watching and for supporting my work.